We'll revisit that.
We will revisit. I'm just giving that as a fundamental.
I want you to give the BBI. That is the handshake living up to the expectations of the Kenyans, or it is another flop again?
To me, the reason I'm giving this background and context is the BBI had to be misguided ab initio. On the face of it, prima facie, if someone alleges that he actually got more votes than the president, and now he is reduced to working under the president in an undefined role, some of which his critics have even called a bodyguard, shadowing him around.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we discuss on Twitter and other platforms, Mr. Speaker, is can you imagine a situation where Hillary Clinton had to shadow around President Trump?
Yeah.
It's important to unify the country, yes. But I think that this culture
the
in
stature
this
and
country,
the dignity that was bestowed on him by the Kenyan masses was not carried with its full gait and respect by Raila.
Absolutely. And the culture now we have in this country, Mr. Speaker, is the culture of sweeping things under the carpet.
Yeah.
The culture also of superficial painting of lipstick on a pig, so that you say everything is fine, we shook hands, we're going. BBI is talking about all the things that we already know that need to happen. For example, respect of public office under Chapter 6, provision of human rights and dignity under Chapter 4 of the Constitution, that there's right to food, right to water, right to health, therefore good governance. You don't need BBI, Mr. Speaker, to tell you that. We know, for example, that ethnic antagonism and negative ethnicity is obviously unhealthy, is the opposite of democracy in this country. Yet, every day we are seeing, and even through BBI, the whipping up of emotions and ethnic groups into conclaves against another one. And finally, sir, if you have something like BBI, which is run by people whose credibility is also in question, the chairman, Haji, there are questions around, his election, his track record, his performance when he was Minister of Defense and what have you.
Yeah.
When he was a provincial commissioner and what have you. How is a guy like that now going to laud democracy in a third world country like Kenya?
Building bridges.
When he himself does not maybe understand democracy and embrace the same. You find that these are very primitive stopgap measures that don't address the real issues and don't go to the surgery that is needed. And finally, of course, by implementing BBI, you then, in public, antagonize the deputy president. So then you are building bridges and uniting the country.
And also demolishing other bridges.
But you're demolishing other bridges, so...
Probably more fundamental.
I don't mean to be so critical, but I'm a logical person. That's why I'm in strategy. You do not sell something as a solution that is in itself creating another problem. Raila has talked about sweeping, BBI will sweep rubbish into the Indian Ocean. And the rubbish, therefore, would be the wing.
William Ruto and everybody else was there. Anybody other than him and Uhuru's side.
Not to mention the cost, sir.
Yes.
Not to mention the cost and the lack of underlying legal framework.
Yes.
So I'm not here. The president is my friend. I do not mean to unduly criticize him. I know he's under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. You can see how things are going and the whole talk about revolution and what have you. But I'm also not here to be a sycophant. So I will always tell him what the truth is, whether he likes it, whether he doesn't.
Coming back to the overshadowing, you mentioned something that has been on my mind for quite a long time.
Yes, sir.
I one time said that Raila has never internalized the concept that he will be the president of this country one day. Regardless of how popular the votes are. That more than anything else, what he wanted mostly is, one, to wield a certain amount of power and to be a very loyal number two to somebody. You remember he said Kibaki Tosha, expecting him to be appointed as the chief minister under those kind of arrangements. But of course, within days of Kibaki coming to power, he was thrown out of the center.
Correct.
I had a problem myself because he won even with the bigger numbers
Yes.
against Kibaki than against Uhuru on the two subsequent elections we've had now.
Correct.
And here was somebody who was supposed to be the president of Kenya, the president Kenya never had.
Yes.
But when the National Accord itself was reached at, which
Yes.
I opposed, I was the only person who stood against it, and
Okay.
him and William Ruto had to bend backwards over
Yeah.
to stop me from opposing that on the floor of the House.
Right.
Because I said I don't see a coalition government
Right.
as a solution to the problem this country has.
Right.
My idea was that we can have a coalition government only for 1 year for purposes of
Transitional.
preparing the country for another election,
Correct.
another general election.
Correct.
And this general election, there will be no rigging.
Correct.
But when then he was the prime minister, technically he was sharing power on a 50-50 basis with,
In
Kibaki.
theory, with the president, yes.
practically.
Yes.
That was the understanding with the international community also.
I remember you had 20 ministers.
That was the understanding.
Yes, sir.
And the understanding was that the two of them, nothing, no executive authority was going to be exercised without the two of them appending their signatures to it, including
Correct.
employment and everybody.
Correct.
But instead of basically having an eyeball-to-eyeball kind of arrangement
Relationship,
with Kibaki,
Yeah.
Raila was more interested in being seen as the second in command to Kibaki, the man welcoming Kibaki to Parliament when Parliament was going to have the state opening.
Correct.
The man who basically is supposed to be there as the number 2 to Kibaki,
Which then put him in conflict with the vice president.
which then put him into conflict with the vice president.
That's the vice president's role.
And I had, as a speaker, as a deputy speaker that time, and one time having had the pleasure of welcoming the president,
Yes.
I had something that really disgusted me.
Yeah.
Because here was Raila
Yeah.
and Kalonzo jostling on who stands on the right side of Kibaki.
Yeah, that was sad.
You see, one side
remember that.
definitely had to be the speaker because
Yeah.
it's a parliamentary function.
Yeah.
So here are the two of them running one, to be on the right side.
Yeah.
And I called Raila aside and I told him, listen, isn't this the man who stole your votes?
Yeah.
Why do you have to shadow him? Why do you have to be a bodyguard? Why do you have to really love to be appreciated by him now as his number 2? You're sharing power. You should not even come to Parliament on such days.
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't get that.
Now that he has won, as you put it,
Yeah.
we're seeing exactly the same kind of a behavior when he calls Uhuru brother.
Now with Kibaki's son,
Yes, with Kibaki's son,
Yeah.
much younger than him.
much younger than him.
Did Kenyans fail to notice that we were actually not supporting a leader all this time? He was supporting somebody who was looking to be number 2, but unfortunately for him, the Mount Kenya group would never allow him to be that.
Yours is such a philosophical question, Mheshimiwa. It's such a deep and philosophical question, and often in the work I do around civic education with my organization, I often identify, as I do advocacy, as I do many interviews, as I do speaking engagements, I often identify the problem in this country with governance, not just a problem of the ruling elite, but also of the electorate, because we don't sufficiently interrogate anything. Honorable Raila is a friend of mine. I consider him a friend and I respect him a lot. But it is also on me, Mr. Speaker, and the reason I'm sitting here, it is on me also to not just be a follower, but to do sufficient background research and to do some reading. And if you understand the issues from the standpoint of Raila being an ex-detainee, you get to learn that there are certain weaknesses that are inherent, even psychologically, to people who have been detained and denied their freedoms and what have you for a long time. And many times a liberator might not necessarily translate into a quality executive. If you look at 2007, all indications are that Raila won. But here he is now. And one of the best examples that I like to give from 2007, just imagine, Honorable Farah, that in 2007, the president of Kenya had 46 members of parliament. Raila Odinga had 101.
Yeah.
That just gives you the magnitude of the problem.
Yeah.
And here is a man now reduced to kowtowing to the president.
Absolutely.
You remember the retreat.
The National Accord is 100% power sharing, 50-50.
I think
he did not have to kowtow.
You remember the retreat, was it in Sagana?
Sagana. It was not a retreat. It was not a retreat. The president went to Sagana and invited him to join him in Sagana.
And then he just wasn't interested in even sitting down and listening to him
With
at all.
his, no. With his, if he did not even pick his own Pentagon those days.
Exactly.
He just picked the permanent secretary in his office there,
Exactly.
basically to carry what do you call
Carry
the papers
notes,
for him.
yeah, exactly.
And the notes for him.
Exactly.
And just took off and straight away went to Sagana. And by the time he came back to us, he said, Hata Mukia
Yeah.
Ninyama. The idea was that. I got a long call from Kofi Annan.
Yeah.
45 minutes call from Kofi Annan.
Correct.
And he told me if Raila, all that Raila was interested in
Was just something small for himself.
was just something small, then why did we have to go through all those problems?
And that's what I'm saying.
The outriders and the name and the red carpet and that's about all.
And that's what I'm saying, sir, because I don't seem like I'm here to bash anybody.
Yes.
That Raila is a poor manager is a fact. That his party is disorganized is a fact. And the fruits of that, and I'm speaking now as a strategist, the fruits of that therefore has to be that you must now play second fiddle and be subservient to your political juniors,
Yeah.
and let your fate be determined by other forces outside of your own control. In other words, your destiny now is not really in your own hands. And I'm saying this, Mr. Speaker, because the end game in this BBI, I don't think any Kenyan will be shocked if Raila is, quote, shortchanged. I don't think anybody will be shocked.
No. It's basically, it's a question. No, so short-changing is a bit relative. Because how much is he asking for? He's probably asking for so little that you don't have to shortchange him. You know, at the time when we were having the coalition government, President George Bush, went on prime time television in the States.
Yes.
From the Oval Office.
Yes.
And said, power sharing in Kenya has got to be real power sharing.
Exactly.
And
I remember
exactly
that.
what Kofi had in mind, which he intimated to me,
Yes.
was that Kibaki as a president will have the first choice at the cabinet. He will choose the cabinet ministry. Raila will choose another one.
Correct.
Kibaki another one.
Correct.
Raila another one. Kibaki another one.
It didn't happen that way.
And then they'll go to the permanent secretaries
Yes.
and do exactly the same.
Yes.
So it was going to be real power sharing. But whatever happened, whatever exchange in hands in Sagana, Raila came back and said, Hata Mkia ni Nyamba. He just basically took all the leftovers.
And what is worse is that, what once he became.
So whatever he traded with that, what do you call, powerful, and that's the time when the international community completely lost faith in us and I wasn't willing to spend any more time.
Because the unspoken issue here is money. But
Yes.
we'll come to that.
Yes. Anyway.
The unspoken issue here is big money. But the other point I was going to make, Mr. Speaker, is even with that mantle of the prime ministership, Honorable Raila did not distinguish himself as a leader of another wing of government.
No.
He did not distinguish himself. We still had corruption.
Yeah.
We had allegations of kazi kwa vijana.
Yeah.
We had the protocol wars with the vice president, etc.
Yes,
so that he did not rise above
Yes.
and meet expectation.
Yes.
In which case, then people will say, then what is the point of fighting for this thing if you are also inept, if you are also corrupt, you are accusing the other side of corruption? And I think once this credibility is so dented, it then gives the impetus on your political juniors, your successors, the William Rutos of this world, etc., to not only have contempt for you, but also to have the audacity to, quote, rig you out. This is what happened. I think I don't want to go beyond that.
No. I think because of the experience we had in 2007
Yes, sir.
and the subsequent whatever happened, to 2013 when this happened, the international community, particularly the eminent African personalities,
Yes.
we did not have any more interest. They said, look, even if we come and ask for justice, ask for fair democracy in that place, ask for all his rights, you never know what he's going to negotiate at the end of the day himself.
Exactly, yeah.
He might settle for something,
Exactly.
whatever, the way he did in 2008.
Yeah, so then it's futile.
So it's like,
Yeah,
why waste
not
our
worth
time?
it, yeah.
Let the Kenyans sort out themselves.
Okay.
Now, what happens in this case, he is definitely going to be shortchanged. There's no doubt about that.
I can't say with certainty, but
because even the idea of saying that this thing is going to be taken to the public is an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I don't think being the other principle, people say that this BBI document that was presented to us was a doctored document.
Yeah.
Fully doctored.
Yeah.
Not so much because they did not want to prick the sensitivities of the former Prime Minister, but because of Ruto and what the mountain were looking at. You see, the war was more between Uhuru, his own backyard in Central Province.
In Central, there's a problem.
And Uhuru and Ruto, who is basically flexing his. He was there he's now for about 8 years. This is the 8th year now we're running.
Yes.
Since they came to power.
Or 7th.
7th year.
Yeah.
Basically, he has been running there as the number 2, the serious number 2.
Absolutely.
And more often seen as actually playing the role of the number 1.
And so unlike traction.
Unlike what Raila did under Kibaki.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Deferring everything to Kibaki.
Exactly.
And basically being just a very good follower.
Correct.
An errand boy, you could say to some extent.
Correct.
But this guy here, literally, he asserted himself.
Have you seen his entourage? I know for some of us in strategy.
I know. So it's not easy for Uhuru to just, shove him aside. It's impossible.
And he's an elected DP, not appointed.
Presidency.
Yes.
It basically they stay together.
Correct.
Until the end of the day.
Correct.
Now, that's the power politics.
Correct.
Those are the works of the deep state and basically, unfortunately, for our good friend who has suffered all these years, his own naivety or his own weaknesses. Yeah. Weaknesses for certain other, the niceties of the world.
Yes.
Of life. What is in it for Kenya? Where are we? The economy, employment for young people, capital flight out of the country, industries closing.
I am sorry to tell you.
Poverty in the country, literally, abject poverty.
I am sorry to tell you, but I shouldn't be sorry to speak the truth. Mr. Speaker, where this country is now, and I look at data. I love looking at data because...
Although a lot of it also has been fake data, because when they talk about 5.9% growth in the economy, I don't think we've had any...
I'm not even talking about that kind of data, sir. Yes. I'm talking about, in a broader sense, to really understand the macroeconomics in this country. I work closely with the Institute for Economic Affairs, IEA.
I know.
I can tell you that unemployment numbers are staggering at over 50%. 1 in 2 Kenyans has no way of earning a living. The taxation regime in this country is out of control because we are punishing investors and business people by double and triple taxation and no commensurate services. Yes. Okay? So that's one of the things. If you look at remuneration, a person living in Kawangware in this country with a family earning $90 a month, you're paying rent, you're feeding your family, your kids are going to school. So the poverty numbers are unbelievable. If you look at the unemployment or even the banks, if you look at what it takes to open a business in this county or in this country, the licensing required, the corruption, the extortion, the security. I just saw a friend of mine over the weekend.
Pending bills, and the rest of it. Pending bills.
Pending bills?
Yes.
I noticed a friend of mine.
Hold on to your thoughts.
Yeah.
And briefly, we'll have a commercial break, and we shall be right back. Viewers, we'll have a short commercial break, and shall be right back.